Okay. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you, Judy, for getting me here. Yeah, I just thought I'd talk for a little while about me and how I got started in the pro-life movement and what we do at the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation, and then we can do some questions and answers. That's all right. I get tired of my own voice. So anyway, I am Cecily Routman, and I'm the founder and the president of an organization called the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. And what we do is we provide much needed Torah-based pro-life education to Jewish communities. And we have Jewish-friendly pregnancy care and adoption referrals. And we also have a Jewish-based healing program for
Mm.
Jewish women and men who suffer after abortion. And our little motto is that we're making the original pro-life religion pro-life again, because our Torah is very life affirming and our tradition is 100% pro-life from conception, no exceptions. And that's what we do. We are at odds with about 99% of the whole Jewish population in the whole world. But that's okay. We have a small and growing following. And even though many times in the last, I started in 2006, and many times since then, I've regretted it, but not for long. I'm very glad that I made it this far, and that I can share a little bit about how that all happened. So I grew up in a kind of a regular suburban type Jewish family. My dad was religious, my mother was agnostic. We had a family owned business that everybody worked really hard at. I have two sisters, one older, one younger. Um, and I had kind of a nice spiritual sense growing up. I just always kind of came naturally to me, but like many teenagers, when I left the synagogue, I left God in the sanctuary, and that didn't work out too well for me. And I eventually found my way back to my religion and left again. Um, so when I was called to do this work, I realized this was the only way I was ever going to be able to stay Jewish and stay affiliated with Jews, because I had to develop my own Jewish pro-life community in order to stay in the Jewish, life, because everywhere else I went, I couldn't find that sense of safety, I guess I could say. So how this all began is in 2005, I was listening to a national public radio broadcast. They were doing a show on the review of the partial birth abortion ban that had been passed by the Supreme Court several years earlier. And of course, the pro abortion people sued, and it was back up there. They were reviewing it. And so in that show on National Public Radio, there was a Jewish woman screaming about her right to have a partial birth abortion based on her religion. And I was shocked. I mean, I had grown up like most young Jewish gals in suburban America. My mother told me that her mother told her that abortion is legal in Judaism until the baby begins to be born, and then that life is equal to the mother's life, and you cannot destroy that life at that point. So I had never questioned that. I was not involved with any kind of community. I had no social awareness, social conscience at all. I wasn't involved. I wasn't ever going at that point. I didn't think I'd ever need to have an abortion because I didn't date. I was a very isolative, sickly young adult. But I did graduate high school in the year 1977, and Roe v. Wade had been passed several years earlier, and abortion was growing like mad. I mean, it was crazy. My whole peer group was, using it uh, even at that early date to control their fertility. So even from the beginning, it was a birth control boom. And but when I heard this woman talk about that, I was on this national radio show. I was very concerned because I thought the whole world's listening to this and they're going to think that all Jews are baby killers. And this has been, for centuries, Jews have been stigmatized with this blood libel. And if for those of you who don't know what this is, in medieval times, Jews were accused of killing Christian children and using their blood in our cooking. You know, we have a lot of wine-based cooking in Jewish tradition, and so it's reddish. So anyway, that's how that got started. And it was been used for centuries for killing villages and cities of Jewish people. Um, so I was horrified when I heard this. I said, can't we ever get away from this? There's enough anti-Semitism in the world. But anyway, so I started looking into the abortion industry and what abortion was, and I was horrified. And I thought, how can any Jewish people be involved in this, considering our history? I mean, here's this like innocent child in the womb that's done nothing to anybody. Its very existence is its cause to be destroyed, you know, and this is, I just didn't understand why Jews had anything to do with this. And I came later on to understand that Jews were very active in the abortion access movement. And that comes out of a very strong women's political movement in Judaism and Jewish life, which is far removed from our moral foundations of life that we found in Torah. So I've learned a lot since my early beginnings. And I eventually incorporated in Pennsylvania in 2006, and then got our first nonprofit status in 2007. So since then, you know, I started this website and I've created most of the content in it. And it's full of all these resources trying to educate Jewish people about why we shouldn't be destroying our own children and why we shouldn't encourage and enable other people to destroy their children. That's basically what I've been doing since then. And I'm a different person now because of it. I have to say, I'm much more aware of the spiritual sickness that is just part of the world of people, and how once people are disengaged from a spiritual source, our rational minds can justify anything that's distorted and sick and cruel and inhuman. You know, somehow or another, the human mind is capable of things that are unimaginable. And we all know what history's been like and what people can do to one another and how we can give our power away to tyrants inside our communities and beyond our communities. So I am much chastened and by my experience. I've also become a much kinder person. I mean, I was very hard-hearted early on in my life. My mother, God rest her soul, raised me to be tough because she had a very difficult life. Her parents came from Romania, where life was full of anti-Semitism and war, and, you know, she was raised to survive, and she raised me to survive. And so I have survived, but I was very hard-hearted. But I've now become much softer in my heart and mind. And I have come to appreciate my journey and how my experience has changed and how my outlook has changed. And I just think that rather than give up on my Jewish tribe, which is so warped in this area on this issue, rather than give up on them, I'll just keep showing up and providing information and spiritual inspiration to anyone that would like to take it. So that's basically what I do. I don't try to... I hope that God can use my work to change hearts and minds. But the way it's going, I just don't know. And sometimes I look up and I say, you know, what's taking you so long? So, so that's one thing. And then I will just share a little bit more about our work in Israel. So I've been, you know, when growing up, my parents were very pro-Israel. That was when these cyclical wars, when Israel would be invaded by the Arab enemies that surrounded her. And then there would be all these bond drives, and everybody would be praying and sending, you know, prayers and packages and millions of dollars to Israel to keep it in business there. So I learned to really appreciate Israel. But as we now have the world has changed, people, and this country has changed. And so there's a lot of animus towards Israel now. And my own perception of all these things comes from our Torah. And in our Torah, it's very clear God says certain things to us, and He says, don't kill your children. And if you do, really bad stuff's going to happen. You will be invaded because I cannot protect you if you're that wicked. You will be invaded. You will experience genocide, plague, financial collapse. The world will hate you. People will turn against you. I mean, all these terrible things that have come to pass. And it is just, I do believe that it is because we continue to do this, horrible thing, this child sacrifice, which is, the modern equivalent of that is abortion homicide. And in Israel, it's very, very permissive there. And there's no pro-life movement aside from a few brave and very demonized Messianic Christians that try to share this pro-life message there. There was no Jewish pro-life organization in Israel. And actually, I'm not there yet, but I do have a website there now, all in Hebrew, with a few volunteers. And I just think it's so important to at least introduce these ideas to people so if they happen to run across them, they can start to change the way they think. And I just do hope, like I say on my bio, that I lament secular policy in Israel that leads to loss of Jewish life. And I look forward to a day when we have a holy land of Israel where all life is protected. And so that's sort of what we're doing in Israel, and it's very difficult. Do you know that when I put Jewish Pro-Life Foundation in Google Translate, it's translated as Jewish Abortion Foundation? That's how biased the language is, how deep the corruption is, and how it's really crazy. So, okay, so that's basically what I do every day. And I also try to present a Jewish pro-life voice in the public square because the microphone is to the abortion access people, the very strong Jewish pro-abortion lobbies that are the ones like that spearhead these petition drives in these states for constitutional amendments for abortion access. Like it's the Jewish women that do most of that work. They'll go places where Jews don't even live. And they're successful. They pour a lot of money into it, and they're crazy for this right. And it's embarrassing and destructive. I think it causes a lot more anti-Semitism. So before I finish, I'll just say,
Excuse me. Can I
yes.
talk? So,
Well, let me just finish real
Just one
quick. I have
second.
no,
like
yeah,
two more
please tell
minutes,
me when you're. All right, I just
and then
wanted
we'll
to.
do. Then you can ask as much as you want. And the last thing I want to share about it is when it comes to our. I know Jason and I were talking a little bit about this, which is we do. So we're sort of like a fringe pro-life group, right? Because most of it is Catholic and Christian, and when I first started and sent out my first batch of brochures, I was accused of being a Christian, like a closeted Christian, because no Jewish person could be pro-life. Okay? So a lot of the work that I've done also is like bridging this gap between Christian pro-lifers and our foundation. And I have found some wonderful friends in the Christian community that welcome us. But there is a certain amount of anti-Semitism that's latent among Catholics and Christians. And so I end up being kind of like an ambassador. I've had Catholic people and Christian people tell me that I'm so glad I met you because now I don't have to be anti-Semitic anymore. Those kinds of things. It's been an interesting ride. Okay, I think that I don't know. I don't think I have anything really much else to say except I'm glad to be here with another sort of marginal pro-life group because we kind of have to stick together. And a lot of people have a lot of ways they judge people, and I've gotten to the point now where I don't care who you are, what you hear is what you are or who you are. Just so you think it's wrong to abuse children starting in the womb, and beyond. If you think that stuff is bad, I'm your friend. Okay. And
Thanks,
that's about it
Cecily.
for me. Okay.
Thank you, Cecily. Fletcher, go ahead. Fletcher, did you
So I was gonna say. So you were talking about. So I'm Jewish, and my grandmother used to work at a Planned Parenthood, So, do you have any? What? How would you? Do you have any? How should I? Or Cecily, how should you describe that with what you were just assimilate that your the story you were just talking about?
Well, I learned in my research for my work that it was the Jewish women that helped Margaret Sanger get started in New York.
Right.
Those women came out of Eastern Europe. They had long since given up their Jewish religion because it was too hard to be Jewish in Eastern Europe because of all the
Mhm.
pogroms and everything. So they gave it all up, became communists, very atheistic. And when they got to America, they brought that poison with them. And there was all these immigrant women there in these immigrant communities in New York City. They had all these children. And these women just thought what these women really need is to control their fertility. So they helped Margaret Sanger get started. She could have never gotten started without the Jewish women helping with the birth control movement. And that started a long line of support for Planned Parenthood. And
But
for a long time, Planned Parenthood has been a
when have you?
favorite charity for Jewish women. So yes, we've been very deeply embedded in the abortion industry.
Wait, what do you say about Planned Parenthood for Jewish people? I didn't get that.
Oh, it's been a favorite charity option for Jewish women. I mean, Planned Parenthood survives on taxpayer-funded grants and entitlements and donations. And Jewish donations to Planned Parenthood have been huge. So yeah, it's been a big deal. In fact, it's so embedded now that I would say every single charity that's a Jewish philanthropic charity has been captured by pro-abortion Jews. And
Right.
no money going to those, there's no money going to pro-life causes, but a lot of it's going to support
I
abortion
think it's
access.
interesting that you're saying that like the pro-abortion like is so movement is so big, or like the women are so big, Jewish women are so big on advocating for abortion that it causes anti-Semitism for all of us.
Mhm.
I've walked into a room of Christian pro-lifers and they look at me and I can feel it because they've been fighting us for 50 years. And we've been very successful. We, meaning pro abortion Jews, Hadassah is very involved, the National
Yeah.
Council of Jewish Women,
My mom
very,
would
very involved.
definitely agree with you. My mom's very different than her mother, who used to work at Planned Parenthood.
How is your mother different?
She's like she believes in pro life. She's not as active and she's not really active in any pro life movements like I am, but she definitely believes in pro life. She says, I mean, she obviously I don't know how to say it, but she thinks like her mom will go to hell because she
Oh,
worked at a Planned Parenthood, or at
well,
least one reason.
that's why we have our healing program to heal the souls of these Jewish people that have been involved in killing all these children and harming our families and our communities. It's very hard for them to get out of that. I don't, I believe, the other way I've changed is I do believe that the good Lord is very merciful. And every day he gives us chances to repent and return to him and into his graces. I don't think anybody is, doomed, doomed spiritually. I mean, personally, I would have had an abortion or two back in the day. I didn't know any better. My whole peer group was into it.
And
So if I had made that error, I would have hoped that there would be some kind of way back for me.
this is actually also interesting. So we're talking about my maternal grandmother now. My paternal aunt's another one. I rarely see her post on Facebook other than when it's about abortion. So like there was something this year she wrote like give like access to Planned Parenthood fund or something. I think it was earlier this year. I don't remember exactly when. And then like a few years ago when they had that thing in 2022 where they overturned Roe v. Wade. My aunt wrote a long Facebook message about how angry she was about it.
Oh, well, yes, we have a monthly group like your group tonight, and we get together, we Jewish people. We have a few Catholic supporters as well, but because our families are so often on the other side, it's nice to come in and talk to some people that are Jewish that feel differently. I'm glad your mother's come around. Yeah, but like I said, it's been a very long history. If you look at the Jewish Women's Archive, it goes back to the 1800s where Jewish women were involved in birth control movements. So it's been a long time. And they, I was at we went to there was a Jewish rally for abortion access around the time in the summer before Roe was overturned. And I showed up there with a bunch of people. We had signs and all this stuff. And I saw women there crying, completely distraught because they were not supposed to regret their abortion and they thought they'd done the right thing, but they were clearly very disturbed. And so
Wow.
it's not all that it's made out to be, right? Every abortion is a death of a living person, and I think the whole world feels it. We just don't know why we have this existential discomfort, but we are all connected because we're all children of our Heavenly Father. And when one of us
Yes.
gets killed like that, all of us suffer spiritually. So until this gets solved, the world is going to continue to be in a big mess. And we have all these people in the world, and God bless them, people in this country that are trying to change things, make things better, make things more affordable for people, defund these, places where children are sacrificed for a
Yeah.
number of things. And they're all making a lot of money at it, of course.
I know. But if you were saying
Let
this, like, if my aunt were here right now, she would be
Fletcher,
angry.
Fletcher, I'm gonna let some other people step in
Yeah.
here for a moment, and we'll come back to you,
Please.
so
Okay.
I can let everybody have a
Yeah, I was
chance.
trying to make sure I wasn't taking too much time away from everyone else.
No, I appreciate your comments and I appreciate you joining us again. I just want to make sure everyone else has a chance to speak a little bit too. So, yeah, we usually go around the room and you get a chance to introduce yourself if you'd like, and of course, if you have a question or comment for our speaker, then this is your opportunity.
Jason, I'm going to pass because I know Cecily. We've talked many times, so I'm
Okay,
going to defer to the other people unless we have plenty of time. Okay.
thank you, Judy.
You know,
Well, and Judy's one that referred me, so yes, and we might come back to you anyway. But Julia, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself and any questions, comments for Cecily?
Um, hmm. Well, I appreciate your presentation, and I'm really, like I say, I was curious about Rainbow Pro Life, and um, I've been wanting to investigate. I do support Feminists for Life and Secular Pro Life, and so I'm happy to know that there's a Jewish pro life organization, and I do have abortion in my history, sadly. And like you say, you would have done that too. Everybody was doing it, and I was just spiritually dead and in a lot of pain. And I certainly wouldn't do it now. But once I got sober, that was the first thing that came up, was just all that abortion grief. I mean, there was so much grief and remorse. And I went through a program. It was a Christian program called Victims of Choice. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And yeah, I don't even know if it's still going or not. But anyway, it was very powerful, very healing, and very helpful to me. But I do support the pro-life movement. I'm gay, and all of my friends are pro-life, and I'm very vocal all of my friends are pro-choice. I'm very vocal that I'm pro-life, and they look at me cross-eyed like, you don't really mean, I don't think they get it. I don't think it even computes, because, but I mean, I've said it, and I've said it more than once. And so it's just nice to be with pro-life people. I was just looking to be with community, and I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia, for joining us, and we want you back. We're here every month, so wow, I'm honored that you joined us and sharing your story. So thank you. Elise.
There. Yeah, Cecily, I really appreciate everything you said because one of the first people to confront me about my pro-life views was a progressive Jewish lesbian. And I'm because of what you said, I'm realizing she didn't think I was just attacking like her views. I think she thought I was attacking like her identity. And that's very difficult, and I wish I had understood that better at the time. But I was really curious about what you said about pregnancy aid that's specific to Jewish women, and how I want to know how that's different from regular pregnancy aid.
Okay, thank you, dear. It's so nice to see you. Well, there's a, it's very interesting. There's a lot of Jewish people that are not religious at all, but we've also been taught to avoid anything Christian or Catholic because, goodness gracious, somebody will try to convert us. So if a Jewish woman finds herself in trouble, she's not going to go to a Christian-based pregnancy care support place. So there are several Jewish ones that have grown up and provide pregnancy care, very comprehensive pregnancy care for Jewish women. And so that's one. There's one in coming out of Maryland called Shifra. She named her organization out of the from the midwives in the Bible. Remember when Moses was born and Pharaoh, said that all the male babies should be killed, the Jewish babies. Well, the midwives refused to do that. So Shifra and Pua were the two midwives. So she called her, the woman that started that called it Shifra. And then there's another one, Efrat, in Israel that also has recently opened up an office in Florida. And the other group that I refer to is Birthright. I actually volunteered at a Birthright pregnancy care center in Pittsburgh when I was learning the ropes, the pro-life, ropes. And they're very interdenominational. You don't have to be Christian, or you don't have to, they don't proselytize, they don't say we're going to give you Jesus as well as give you, hope for your baby, that sort of thing. So I think those are very Jewish friendly pregnancy care options for Jewish women.
I want to say something real quick. It'll be Birthright also accepts gay people, lesbians, they've come home pregnant. I don't know about Schiffer's Arm, whether they would accept a lesbian. That's what I was a little concerned about. I don't know, because that's a tough issue with lesbian and trans people. That I was going to check if I forgot. But I'm pretty sure Birthright does. Somebody sent me about that. So if you want to put it on your database, Jason, let you know.
Sure.
They're very welcoming there. They're very welcoming. Shifra usually works only with Orthodox Jewish women because, well, for one thing, most secular Jewish women are not going to be seeking pregnancy care, at least at this point. But the Orthodox women, they've been raised more religious and they have doubts about abortion. So if somebody offers them help, they'll take it.
No, Cecily, no, they do take secular. I talked to them. Because I said, before putting the name out, I got to know what's going on. And they will take secular Jewish women.
They will, but not a lot of secular Jewish women seek their help, is what I'm saying. But they'll take them, sure.
All right. Thank you, Elise. Thanks, Judy. Julianne.
Hello there. I'm very happy to be here. I feel like an outlier, This is a very political time of year, and I'm like a purple person. And so I don't really fit in a lot. I'm very glad to meet you, Cecily, and hear about what you're saying. I had no idea that there was such a strong Jewish pro-choice voice. I just had no idea about that. Coming from when I grew up as a Catholic, and I remember feeling the anti-Catholic bigotry when I was, growing up, 8th, 9th grade, and the secular pro-choice movement was, posting the things or are demonstrating with signs that say, get your rosaries off my ovaries, that kind of a thing. And, I don't think, our religious point of view should have any bearing on how we feel about the right to life. I've come to see that it just crosses lines all over the place. And I think it's terrible to know that Christians were so anti-Semitic because of the large group of Jewish people that are pro-choice. So I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm happy to encourage you in anything you can do to help turn that around. And thank you for enlightening me as well.
Oh, thank you, Julianne, for being here. I will say that I am now known in many Jewish circles as an anti-Semite because the progressive Jews now say, they've repeated it so many times, that abortion is a Jewish value and a religious right. They've repeated it so many times in so many places for so many years that most Jews believe it to one degree or another, and a lot of Christians and Catholics believe that. So when I don't agree with that, I oppose that, I call that out, then now I'm called an anti-Semite by many Jewish people. It's ridiculous because their position is indefensible. So they just call me a bad name, right? Because they can't defend their position. Judaism, as I said, was the first pro-life religion in human history. Before that, child sacrifice was normative. We were the first ones to break that mold, right? And but our rabbis, we have a long history of rabbinic opinions, and their rabbinic opinions now supersede the Word of God in our Torah. And the rabbis over the years came up with opinions that allowed abortion, beginning with a breech birth early on, which I always say had no practical application back in the day when there was no modern medicine or antibiotics or anything. That would have been a big mess. But eventually, those early leniencies, as they called them, grew and grew and grew until now in 2025, rabbinic opinion is such that abortion at any time for any reason is okay. And we have many, many Jews in the more secular denominations that believe that. That's how the rabbis get their jobs. That's how they're trained. Even in our modern Orthodox yeshivas, as they're called, teach these leniencies. And so it's very few people in the Jewish world will even look at this because there's so much, if you even, I like to think that they're closeted pro-life Jews, okay? But they wouldn't dare come out because they'd lose their friends, they'd lose their families, they'd lose their jobs, they'd lose their position in society. But I like to hope that in the closet they are pro-life, and that our work gives them some solace. Yeah, so we don't have the Judaism we started with. And I agree with you, it doesn't have to be religious. It's founded in a moral godliness, but we are supposed to live it. And it shouldn't be political. I agree with you. There's many people in the conservative movement that will not even talk about abortion because it's not good for their bottom line. They lose supporters. When they talk about abortion, they don't talk about it. In fact, Charlie Kirk was the only conservative influencer that even talked about it. And look what he got for his trouble.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Julianne, for joining us and for your question. Marcos?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry. Hello, Cecily. I was just curious because so like when I've had debates with the Jewish community, they always I was always astounded because they always say like we believe that life begins at first breath, right? And I think that's a common response that I hear, and I was just kind of like wondering where that comes from, or like how they came to that position, because I just feel like a lot of people like that I speak to. And I try to not to use religion to defend like the position. All right, like I'm a scientist, and um, I just rather use like facts and whatever. But there does come that time where you guys have that religious person, and they ask like, "Are you religious?" Right? And then if you say yes, like you're putting yourself in a more uh, different situation. And I'm not very well. I mean, I'm Catholic, right? I'm not very well versed, all right, in everything. I would say I still have a lot to learn, but I just wanted to know like where do you think that originated from, or was that always a response? Things like that.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your question. So, there are quite a few of these distortions that come out of Bible verses in the Old Testament, and I put together a PowerPoint. You can find it on our website called Judaism, the Original Pro-Life Religion, and this is one of the items in the PowerPoint, as well as other distortions. So this comes from when way back in Genesis, when Adam was created and God breathed life into him. So that's when that's why they say when the baby takes its first breath, that's when it's alive. Now, of course, we know this is ridiculous, that life begins at conception, and
Yeah.
that any look at any kind of ultrasound can show you that that baby is alive. It has a heartbeat at 18 days. And as our technology gets better, we're going to be able to prove, you know, a lot more life earlier than that. So, yes, it's ridiculous. And these people are well educated. Many part of the problem is so many Jewish people are in school forever, and they become, they hear all of the pro-abortion rhetoric there. And we were taught, oh, the population needs to be controlled, and then so many different reasons. But yes, so that's where it comes from. And in my PowerPoint, I talk about that. There's a bunch of other ones too. One that I've just now corrected finally. It's taken me years to track this one down, but there's an Exodus first, Exodus 21. There's two verses in there, 22 to 23, where it talks about if two men are fighting and they inadvertently strike a pregnant woman.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that one?
Yes, I have. I have. Yeah, it's kind of like what they use to kind of justify like abortion, because I think it was talking about miscarriage, right? Like that verse or that um, specific passage has to do with like a miscarriage. That's what it sounds like to me. But then again, it doesn't refer to like, for example, like that it's okay. It's just
Okay.
like in the concept of that, I think that's what it was talking about. But it's not necessarily referencing like abortion. Is kind of just referencing like a different scenario, I guess. I don't know. That's what I understood from that, but I have heard that before. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me explain it because there's many layers to this. Okay, so it gets complicated, but of course, like everything that's complicated, it's very simple. The original Hebrew doesn't say anything about a miscarriage. You can look at it right there in any kind of Torah or any kind of Hebrew text online. The words in there do not include miscarriage. It's interesting, in Hebrew, the word for miscarriage is the same word for abortion.
Oh,
Very
okay.
interesting, right? So that gets
Yeah.
confusing. But that
Yeah.
word is
I
not
think that's
even,
what I've heard.
yes, that word is not even in that Exodus verse. What it says in there, the actual Hebrew meaning says that when they strike that woman and she delivers the baby prematurely, but it's alive, then her husband just can get compensation, financial compensation from those guys. But if the baby dies, then it's a life for a life. So it's consistent with the idea that the baby in the womb is alive and of inestimable value to God, right? It is a real
Yeah.
life and worthy of a life for a life. So then basically, but our rabbis say, and I think this is practical, they say not necessarily that those guys get murdered, like the state doesn't necessarily kill them because that was an involuntary homicidal situation, right? They didn't have an intention to kill that baby if indeed the baby dies. So they wouldn't actually get capital punishment for that. They wouldn't be executed, but they would be fined as if it were involuntary manslaughter. So that's a whole nother part of this thing. But the actual Hebrew does not say anything about a miscarried baby. There's only one source that I found that keeps the original language, and it's in, if you go to Bible Gateway and you look up that verse and you choose the Orthodox complete, the Orthodox Jewish Bible, that's the only one that keeps the original intention of that verse that says the premature birth, but the baby is alive. So you're right when you say even if it is wrongly interpreted and they interpret it and translate it as a miscarriage, it should not be generalized to say that abortion is okay. You're absolutely right
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I think that's why someone brought that up, and I was like, I don't know where this came from. Like, I just need to be more informed, I guess. But when someone brought that up, I was like, that's interesting. I never, like, sometimes like people, when it's so ingrained into their fiber of their being, like they just believe it without even like looking into it, you know. And like for me, it's just always been like, I mean, Jeremiah, right? You know, I knit you together in your mother's womb, you know, all those, you know, um, all those different verses that you're so used to like using and things like that. But you know, when people brings up something like this, it kind of throws me off. Like I'm not really well versed, and so I try to get more informed. But thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, we're trying to educate people so they can respond to these distortions and lies, especially, on the ground pro-lifers like you guys, as well as people in state legislatures that are actually debating with Jewish abortion advocates. And like they're all good Christian and Catholic people. And when these Jewish women start talking about this stuff, these people don't know what to say because it's outrageous and ridiculous, but they don't know how to respond. So that's one of the things we're trying to do. And um, uh, yes, so I hope that some of our work helps you respond to this stuff. It's
Of course, I'll
uh,
definitely look into that. Yeah, I'm very
yeah.
curious.
And also these Jewish women, they don't read the Bible, so they don't know about Jeremiah. They don't
Uh-huh.
know about Genesis 9:6 that says, don't shed innocent blood within man. Genesis 9:6 says, whoever sheds the blood of man within man, so shall his blood be shed, and you be fruitful and multiply. Now, the modern translation of that is, whoever sheds the blood of man by man.
Mhm.
But the original was within man. And who's that? That's the baby. Okay, so God says that
Yeah.
very early in Genesis, don't do this. So these women don't know about that. They don't know about the
Mhm.
prophets. They don't know about the curses that God promises for child sacrifice and the blessings that we will receive if we are a holy people and protect his children. I mean, it says in our Torah that you have to be kind to the orphan and the widow, right? Don't
Yeah.
shed innocent blood, right? That's
Mhm.
but these women don't know any of that. You're absolutely right. They don't know. So they can't
Would
even
you say
begin.
that they're, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
would you say that they're just trying to use, I mean, the history of the Jewish label, like the history behind, you know, what you guys went through and like all the horrific things, and they're just trying to use the label just to kind of like pass, I guess, and just, you know, distort the view, even though that's not the literal view, the actual view being something more, and it actually defends our purpose. Um, like, would you say that they're just misusing the Jewish label?
Yes, they're using it to move forward their mission in life, which is anti-holy, against God, and ultimately will destroy whatever Jewish population there is on the planet, right? There's only about 15 million Jews in the world, right?
Mhm.
And there would be a lot more of them if we weren't killing our children. Now, we have
Exactly.
fewer Jews now than before the Holocaust, and we've had
Mhm.
quite a number of decades to make up the loss, but we're behind because there's so many Jewish people that use abortion. Now, we have a
Mhm.
bunch of very religious Jewish people that believe in large families, and for the most part, reject abortion. And that's great. But um, they, I mean, people that care about this sort of demographic problem are relying on them to, keep the thing going. But there's no guarantees that the way the world is now, that we're going to we're going to have a chance to make up the time. We don't know.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marcos. Leah, you have anything to add? I'm going to read what you said here. If you have anything to add, please interject here. Leah says, learned about that Exodus passage in my theology college class, and my professor had said that it showed that an unborn child's life isn't equal with the mother's life, along those lines, something. Yeah, and yes, I've heard that too. I'll interject here for a moment, and I was thinking because there's still, even if you take that line of reasoning and you're going to be religious about it and say, okay, this is how we get to where we are. So you're saying that it's still a crime. It's a crime of essentially property. And so then, I mean, that this is not a child, but it's damaging someone's property. And so, or you're going to be, the exchange for that is, monetary value or property. That's the way I interpreted it, at least the way they were going. And so, do you want to argue that in terms of our civil rights past, our history, and our nation to say a human being is property? Do you want to go down that route? I mean, I sure don't. I'm surprised some people do. That's the way I interpret it. I could be totally off myself, but not now. What you just said, that's new to me, and that makes me feel a lot better about that whole passage. Cecily, I mean, that's very important. The original translation, in other words, the devil's in the translation, essentially been translated so many times differently. And of course, there's other supporting passages that seem to be, like what Marcus mentioned, very clear. I need you in your mother's room, and seem to be very explicitly pro-life. Okay, well, I'm sure you all are realizing the interconnectedness that we have with our Jewish friends. Of course, some of you are Jewish and LGBT plus, and so there's this huge overlap there. But obviously, when I started talking to Cecily the other night, it really clicked on my head how we have the same problem in the sense that most of our group, LGBT plus, is anti-life before birth. And we are ostracized because of that. And there's this assumption often when you walk into a pro-life space and you're LGBT plus, that you're not necessarily shunned, but people are very skeptical. Like, what are you doing here? You're not pro-life. You can't be pro-life because you're this. Not exactly the same with what Cecily's mentioning, although you have shared some stories that seems you walking into that space and there's this these assumptions at first, that skepticism and concern, and that, of course, that's our job. That's why we're here tonight, just to share in what's going on and what to do next.
Excuse me, Jason, I think you forgot to call on Elise.
Oh, I did. Elise was asking about the pregnancy, post-abortive healing and pregnancy resources for Jewish folks that wouldn't probably want to go to the Christian, the mostly traditional centers, right, for help. That's what Elise was talking about. But thank you, Judy. And frankly, our group has working, I say working, but we're struggling with the idea. There's a lot of LGBT plus folks are considered to be not not getting abortions, but we've found through our statistics that maybe a fourth or a fifth of folks that are walking into the abortion clinic actually are LGBT plus. Lesbians, transgender, it happens. And those folks, by and large, are going to be skeptical, okay, if they're post-abortive or even considering abortion, to go to a conservative Christian center. Automatically, you have this barrier of these people don't like me, or they're going to be like you said, cross-eyed and all concerned. It's like, oh, you're a lesbian now? No, what do we do now? So and Frank, and I know a lot of these people, and they're wondering. I mean, conservative, Christian, well-meaning people, and yet there's this bridge, there's this divide, and we would love to. I know Marcos here he's going to be an OBGYN. This is kind of his passion too. That's why I'm going to bring him up here for a second. That we'd love to have a resource, a pro-life, LGBT plus affirming or accepting pregnancy center and post-abortive healing thing. We're just not big enough and strong enough to do that yet. But we're going to work with folks like Cecily to figure out what she's doing, because she's already working in Israel. I didn't know that. You're already doing stuff in Israel and working on things that we're way behind you in several ways. It's very impressive hearing you tonight. So to wrap things up, does anybody have any last minute comments, questions that they thought of? Give them a second to ask that here. Okay.
Can I just say one more thing before we finish?
Cecily, you go.
Okay. So one of the things I didn't mention is, the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation is not affiliated with any Jewish denomination or politics or religious movement. And so I will just share, though, that there are very many religious Jews that are really shun the whole gay movement, because our Torah says don't do that. Well, our Torah says don't do a lot of things. But a lot of Jew or religious people do some of those things. I mean, it's so easy to point the finger, right, at all these different rules. But so we don't affiliate with that. We welcome every Jewish person that just comes to believe that life is sacred and wants a community, right? So, yes, so that's why I can be here, because I don't feel that I have to stay within some narrow range and then and not build bridges with other groups. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, please don't be too impressed by what I do in Israel. It's not great yet. It's a really a work in progress. It's tough. And actually, to keep us humble, I don't know if we've ever saved anybody from anything. All I do is I get up every morning now and I just ask the good Lord, what do you want me to do today, Lord? Because many years ago, I got to the end of Cecily. She suffered enough out of her own willfulness and narrow-mindedness and stupidity. So I don't deal with myself much anymore. I just ask God what he wants me to do, and I do it to the best of my ability, and I somehow get through the day. But I have a peaceful heart, and I'm very forgiving now, and I just feel like the rest of my life, whatever I have to do, this is okay to do. It's a decent idea to move forward in the world. We have enough hate in this world. We've had enough of it. And I think a lot of the hate that we have towards each other starts with this disrespect of life in general. I think that when we legalized abortion in this country, we went down a road that only breeds hate and violence. And in order to stop it, we need to stop that. And until then, it's just a sham. So I get very frustrated with all these people running around saying, oh, well, we should do this and we should do this. But until you stop the killing in the womb, we're in a mess. So I think it's worth trying to share that message. And I thank you very much for having me as a guest. So if you want to learn more about us, go to jewishprolifefoundation.org.
Thank you.
Feel free to call me anytime.
Thank you. And I've put in the chat here, the jewishprolifefoundation.org link. I've also put our link, RainbowProLife.org, so you can look up those if you're new or just want to revisit. I've been updating it every week, so it's getting a little bit better. Our group's trying to mirror what Cecily's doing there. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I need to mention, I would be remiss not to mention that Rainbow Pro Life is non-sectarian, non-political, So, however, we are welcoming to, I say, what about whatever, so all different kinds of religious faiths and political leanings, because we have it all here. I can trust you. I can trust that. You can trust me on that. And so that what makes us kind of unique and different. So, and we work with all these different groups. We work with secular pro-life, but we're not secular. We work with progressive anti-abortion uprising, but we're not necessarily progressive. So we're just our own thing, and that's all right, right? So with that, we do have, I'm going to mention, and I just got this set up this last week, we're having a event the night before the March for Life, which is the March for Life's January 23rd this year in DC. And the night before, we're having a soiree, which is an evening party in French. And so I'm working on all the details, but you can already get tickets at RainbowProLife.org, and it will be the evening before, so you'll probably already be in town. Does anyone know who's going to the March for Life this year? I know Cecily is.
Me, I'm going to the soiree.
Elise is going. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to make it.
Which party are you talking about?
Our party. The night before party.
When is this?
It's the Rainbow Pro-Life soiree.
Which day is that? Which date?
That'll be January 22nd in the evening. We'll start around 7:07 p.m.
Yeah, I might come to that. It's going to depend on I don't know how to say it, just with yeah, lots going on.
Right. We have a lot of competition too. Just people's schedules and flights and other things to attend. There's a lot going on. I'm just working on reserving our space finally, so we're making progress, but we'd love to have all of you there. It's cheap too. We're only $10 for our ticket to join our event. So yeah, check out our website, and there's some more information there about it, and we'd love to have all of you. And with that, I'm going to wrap up tonight. We'll have another meeting in early December and another wonderful speaker. And of course, thank you so much, Cecily, for joining us. And of course, all of a sudden, I feel like you're part of us too. So please come back to one of our meetings, and you can just be a guest, and you can interrogate somebody else. Why do you think that?
I'm just looking at the chat, and they're just so delightful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience in the chat.
Yeah.
I really appreciate having been here, and thank you for including me in everything. I appreciate that very much. And feel free, if you'd like to come to our monthly mishpachah, our monthly meeting, our fellowship meeting. It's called a mishpachah. Judy goes. If you want to learn, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, I announce it in the newsletters.
And that's on your website, right? How to get to all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you in December and in January in person, hopefully. Have a good night.
Shalom.